Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Creative Experience 3D. My name is Quinn. You might remember me from last time.
Welcome. Thank you so much for showing up. My name is Aparna, and I'm a UX student at SCAD. We think you're going to have a lot of fun today. We see that there's a lot of SCAD folks joining in today. I don't know about you guys, but it's been a crazy week. How are y'all's finals? Let us know. Type it in the group chat.
Group chat? Aparna, they don't know where group chat is. If this is your first time using On24, there's a few things you should know. On the top left, well, that's where we are. Hello, welcome. It's good to see you. If you play a video or we share our screens, it'll pop up there too. Underneath that, we have some free resources you can take advantage of during the event and even afterwards if you want. At the bottom, we have a dock with controls for each one of these modules. Go ahead and do me a favor and click on the one that says chat. We want to see you guys in our chat. I'll give you a minute to do that. We'll open up a little chat window in the top right. This is a space for you guys to talk, and we'll be asking audience questions here in a few minutes. The last module is on the bottom right, and it's a special place for you guys to ask us a question. When you do, we'll either respond verbally or individually if that's more appropriate. To start off, just to get our toes a little wet, I'm going to ask a question, and I want to see your answer in chat. So it's one on the top right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing today? I want to hear how you're doing today. Aparna, how are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, I'm doing like about 100. Finals are done. Really excited for this event. You know, a lot of new things going on. What about you, Quinn?
It sounds like you didn't understand the question because I did ask on a scale of 1 to 10, not a scale of 1 to 100. But that's okay. We got a couple of thousands. We got a 3,000, 7 to 8. Brian, I feel that a 7 to 8. I'm in the same boat. Cool. We have some very specific numbers. Oh, Ryan M, perfect 10. I feel that. I feel that. Let's see. I have a couple other questions for you guys. I want to know, where are you tuning in from? We're here in Savannah because that's where SCAD is, but I'm curious where you guys are from. Over 9,000. I feel like I need my power level reader. It's like, it's over 9,000, Matthew P. We got a Savannah. Oh, we got a Northern Virginia. A Nigeria. Wow. Cleveland, Austin, Florida, Singapore.
Wow.
Puerto Rico. Arjun, you're from India, but in Savannah. We have so many international students here. It's a fun time. Greetings from Virginia. Fun fact, I'm actually from Northern Virginia, so hello, all my Virginia friends. I go there on breaks and when I miss home. Let's ask another one. We'll have one more question for you guys. Does pineapple belong on pizza? I've been trying to get to the bottom of this one for the longest time. Aparna, does
no.
Pineapple belong on pizza?
Pineapple
No?
does not belong on pizza. Not at all.
I think my answer to this question has always been pineapple does not belong on my pizza. I think if you want to put pineapple on your pizza, you're more than welcome to do that to yourself. I won't judge, but pineapple does not belong on my pizza, and I will not make a pineapple pizza. For 3D folks, we have a couple 3D people, we have a couple 2D people. First off, 2D people, thank you so much for joining us. We know this is kind of scary. I'm a 2D person, so I totally get it. But for our 3D folks, I want to know, where do you specialize in the 3D pipeline? Do we have some texture artists here? Do we have some modelers? What else have we got? I want to know what 3D people we have here. Aparna, what's your 3D specialty?
Oh, I don't know if I have one, you know. I'm more of a 2D person. So I guess I'm here to learn today.
You specialize in the two-dimensional aspects of 3D. I feel that. We have some visual effects. We got industrial design, some service design. Yeah, I got a lot of architecture, industrial design. Gosh, lots of industrial design people. They make us take in
there's a lighting
and look development. Oh my gosh, that is very specialized. That's awesome. Was anyone here at the 2D event? Do you have any 2D event friendos? Were you at the 2D event, Aparna? I was a part of it, so I get to say that I was there. You were there? Did you have a good time?
I was there. Oh my God, I loved Orlando's work. So inspiring.
Me too. It was really good. I see Sam was. I see Hank was. Yeah, Mexifunk. We got some people that remembered. Awesome. Yeah, Orlando is fantastic. Orlando is fantastic. All right, we have a great show planned out for you that has a couple really cool things for 3D veterans and for noobs like me. But before we get into it, we want to thank our sponsors for this event. Z by HP, HP's workstation line, Adobe, NVIDIA, and Intel. Z by HP recently released the ZBook Studio G7, which is the world's most powerful workstation of its size, based on thermal design power, which allows you to take advantage of HP's great product design, Adobe's creative software, NVIDIA's powerful graphics, and Intel's blazing fast processors. Check it out on their website or using the link in chat.
If you guys don't know, we have a Discord channel for the event that's about to get ridiculous with the design challenge that we'll introduce at the end of this event. This is where you get to take what you learned today and apply it to a completely new project. If you're lucky, you'll get your work featured by some of our partners on their official social media with your networking information. So join if you want to participate. And with that, let's talk about our event for today. I'm really excited for our host coming in today. I don't know about you, Quinn. How are you feeling?
Yeah, last time we had Orlando, that was such a fun time. But today we have two hosts, which means double the creative energy. Sabour is a workflow specialist from NVIDIA. You might have seen his work in visual effects and music videos for artists like Ariana Grande, Iggy Azalea, and so many more. Josh comes from Z by HP. He's a creative technologist with a background in 3D workflows and digital fabrication. He's done everything 3D, from building 3D prosthetic beaks for toucans to making some shoes for will.i.am that he wore at the Grammys. That's so cool. Sabour and Josh, welcome. It's so good to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're all going to learn something. Josh's going to teach me something, I'm sure. And hopefully I teach somebody something, whether or not it be a trick or something. We'll see. It'll be fun.
Let's get some love for Sabour and Josh here in the chat. We want to know what you guys are excited for today. It's great to see you guys. So, what do you got for us? I'd love to start learning. What's up, Sabour?
Well, let's dive in. I'm gonna show you kind of a couple different things, and after I'm done, I'm also gonna Josh is gonna take over and show you some things that are gonna complement what I'm gonna show you. So let's just kind of dive in with the capture process, right? So, what is the hardware?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was going to say, I'm really excited. You were showing me a preview of the studio that you set up to do some photogrammetry, and I think you've got a few demos ready for us. I'm excited to see all of your gear in action.
Well, should we dive in?
Yeah, man, start the demo. Let's see it.
Let's go for it. So capture, create, experience. How are we going to capture something? Well, in this office, I have a bunch of fun things that we can potentially scan. We all took a little bit of a vote, and we decided this tiger actually might be a really cool asset to scan, and might be able to create a really cool scene out of this tiger. So how do we do it? The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set up a stage. So in my little office, I set up a little backdrop, and I'm using what's called the void method, and it's the absence of light, so you can really isolate your subject in the shot. And then I'm using a motorized Syrup Genie rotating head that can control my camera, and it controls it by increments. So I can tell it how many images I want. And then I have a 5D Mark IV with a ring flash that has a polarizer filter on it and a polarizer lens filter on the actual lens. I'll demonstrate what that means. So I'm going to grab my Canteen, and I'm just going to slap it on there because it's got a semi-reflective material. But we want to eliminate reflections. For photo scanning, reflections are going to throw off the algorithm. So I'm going to spin that little polarizer until I see no reflection. Bam, that looks good, right? So now we're in a good place to bring in our actual subject. So I'm going to bring in my tiger. I'm going to put it on the 3D rotating head, and we're going to now try to dive in on how we're going to execute it. So I press record on the iPad, which is synced to that Syrup Genie rotating head, and you can see it's firing off a shot, it's rotating the tiger head, and firing off a shot, and it's just repeating that process 32 times. I've set it to take 32 images around. And the technique that I'm using is I capture everything to the HPZ book, and I'm monitoring each one of the images to make sure everything's looking right. And then the ring flash is shooting through a polarizer to eliminate all the reflections. And I'm taking 32 images, and I'm incrementing the height in which I'm taking those images. So at the end of the day, I think I end up with about 180 something images. You can even see right here, I'm on frame number 14 of 32. So it's doing its rotation. It's kind of an automated process once you kind of set it up. So that's the kind of nice thing about having a motorized head. You don't need a motorized head. You can just get a standard head and just manually rotate it, take an image, and do the same thing, rotate it, take an image, until you have a full 360-degree view of your subject. And what's nice about having the ZBook that I've been using lately is when I'm on a field, I can actually test to see if what I'm capturing is going to look good, or if I'm messing up, or if I missed something, because I can do rough scans, I can do draft scans, I can look at the images on the fly and make sure that the images are coming through. And if I need to, I can even control the motorized head with the HP ZBook. It's pretty cool because it also has RGPUs. But let's just dive into reality capture to show you how we can leverage all of that and create a really good asset.
Sabour, before we go into reality capture, that all seemed really expensive. Like, and just in time, in like, you know, material. I mean, it looks so official and like set up and cool. I don't have all of that. I'm a 2D artist, you know. Are there any solutions that exist for like, you know, me basically if I want to do some of this photogrammetry stuff?
So, and quick, before you jump into that part, I do want to know, Sabour, that looked pretty cool. What type of gear are you shooting there? Like and is this all in your house? I mean, that's crazy. You have like a full-on production studio.
So yeah, I can kind of go over some of the gear. We'll go over like the more I guess expensive gear, but I can show you guys how to scale it back. So the way I did it was. You can use any DSLR. You don't have to use a top-end DSLR like a Canon 5D Mark IV. In my case, I used a Canon 5D Mark IV, and what I have is this ring flash where the lens fits right inside in between it, right? And then what I did was I 3D printed a polarizing filter for it. Now, this is a more advanced way to do it, right? And it's got a little like magnet. I got these little cheap magnets and then figured out a way to like, you know, slap it on there. But what's nice about this is you don't have to have a rig like this. You could just buy polarizing film and then buy a polarizing lens, which these aren't very expensive. They're like $20, $30. But the idea is you're trying to get rid of reflections, right? And then I'm using a motorized head, which is made by Syrup Genie. And this is kind of cool because it actually interfaces with your iPad. So you can see right here, if I press record right here, you could see the iPad is going to rotate this motorized head. And when you have your camera connected to this motorized head, it'll actually fire off an image for every single rotation. It's an automated process. It's kind of rad, but you don't need this. You don't need this at all. Before I even got all this equipment, I was doing it by a long time ago. I borrowed a Lazy Susan, is what they were called, from my mom, and it was like this big circle roller thing. And I just made some little markers on it, and I manually rotated it to get that same image. But also when you're on the field, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to have a motorized head. All you have to do is just walk around the subject, whether or not it be a tree, a rock, anything. It doesn't really matter. But to answer your question, Quint, you really do not need all this expensive equipment. I actually started off doing a lot of this with my phone. And phones have actually kind of advanced quite a bit to the point where we're able to get LiDAR scans on some of the newer phones. Like, for example, the iPhone, the new iPhone actually does have a LiDAR scanner. So what I did was just to do a quick little test is I grabbed my iPhone and I just started scanning my office. Going around, just pointing the camera all around.
What?
Yeah, it's cool, right? It's a fun experience. It's super simple, and this was a free app, right? It didn't cost me anything. But the phone, obviously, the iPads have LiDAR scanners, and new phones have LiDAR scanners. it's becoming much more accessible for someone who might have, a consumer piece of software. You don't have to have like this big expensive camera. You can have this type of technology in a much more compact way and an affordable way. This took no gear whatsoever. Now, you're not going to get a movie quality asset, but you could potentially make like a little 3D model of your room or your office, and it turns into something kind of fun. But on top of that, taking this LiDAR, this LiDAR scan out of the equation and doing just traditional photogrammetry, again, you can do that with your phone. If you don't have a LiDAR scanner with your phone, that doesn't matter. Don't let that stop you, because you can still get really high quality scans with your phone as long as you get plenty of images. With every crevice, you can process that and capture reality. And capture reality is great because it's got, it's got a free trial that you can try some things. I think it just limits what you can export, and it has a point or credit system, so it's affordable to play around it. So that's a really good question, Quentin. I appreciate you asking that.
That's so cool, man. I mean, you were walking around there, and it looked like, the Matrix almost. It was like, all right, let's take your physical world, let's just bring it into the real world. It's no big deal. We have a question from Josh Lind. By the way, hi, Josh. I know you. What was that free app for LiDAR?
So that app was Polycam. There's a couple of them. There's RoomScan LiDAR. There's Polycam and 3D Scanner app. There's quite a few of them, and what they do is they let you do like 3 or 4 scans for free, and then if you want to like scale it up and like scan your entire house, then you can pay one of those little app purchases or something like that. But it's just enough to be like, this is cool. I can walk around, and I can scan my house, or scan my room. It's kind of fun. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun getting into the hardware of it, right?
Imagine a world where we don't take pictures of things. Like, I don't share a picture with you. I share an object with you, and you can tap on it and like put it in AR on your desk and be like, oh yeah, I know what this is now. I've seen this sculpture. You sent me a scan of it.
Well, it's funny you say that. I feel like we should try that out today. I feel like we should try to figure out how to get whatever 3D asset that we scan, in this case, our Tiger over here, and let's try to make an AR experience out of it, right? I mean, it can't be that hard. Adobe's coming out with some cool tools. So, I mean, with that said, you guys want to dive into the software side of it to see maybe how we process some of this stuff?
I know, I'd love to. I think that'd be really cool.
Okay, are there any questions before I move on with regards to the hardware side of it? Think we're good?
I think we're good. Those are all the questions we have. If you guys do have questions while we're going through the demo section, drop them in that Q&A section. We'll answer them.
Sweet. So let's dive into the software side of it, because that ultimately doesn't matter. All the hardware you have, you still have to figure out a way to process all that information. So let's dive into how to do it. So before we go into Capture Reality, we have to download our photos. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Adobe Bridge. I like to use Adobe Bridge instead of Lightroom and Photoshop only because I can get in and get out for this specific purpose. So I'm going to select all my images, and I'm going to go to Open in Camera Raw. Once Camera Raw opens up, what we're going to be doing is just making some rough adjustments, right? So the biggest thing I'm trying to do is just isolate that background and make it as black as possible, just to make sure that, not isolate the background, I'm sorry, isolate our subject, right? So we're going to bring down the highlights a little bit just to bring some of the details, bring up the exposure, just trying to balance it out a little bit. And then I'm going to use the adjustment brush over here. And once I do that, I can basically just start to paint by dropping the exposure all the way down around the edges, right? So now that I have that painted around the edges, I'm trying to get the entire background to be black. So now what I can do is I can just grab my crop tool and just kind of trim out that bottom section, because I don't want to see my rotating camera head, the Syrup Genie. I don't want to see anything on the sides, just in case. I just really want to isolate my image, my tiger in this case. So the nice thing is, once I do it on one image, I can just select everything all at once. And let's go ahead and just do that. So select everything and just go to Sync Settings. And then just make sure that you turn on crop and local adjustments, because then it'll apply the crop and all those brush strokes that I did around the edges to all the images, which is really nice. So now that we have that whole first set, the first rotation of images processed, we can go ahead and press. I'm just going to spot check everything, make sure it looks good. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. It's looking, yeah, everything looks dark. What you're looking for is to make sure that there's nothing in the background, because you really want that background to be devoid of all detail. Just to make sure that there's no, the capture software doesn't pick up anything in the background and potentially cause an error. So let's select the other set of images and just kind of run through a really quick workflow. I'm just going to select a bunch of these. There we go. I open it up in Camera Raw again, and then kind of got to do the same thing. Drop the highlights, brush out that black, make sure that black is nice and dark, and then do the next set of images, open it up, and then we're going to adjust the exposure, paint out the black, and then sync the settings on all of them. Do the same thing on the next one. And all I'm doing is I'm doing the same exact workflow for every row of images that I captured. And again, I did about 5 different rows, totaling, I think it's 186 or so images. So once you have all of that set up, what you want to do is just select everything. And then we're going to go ahead and open up in Camera Raw one more time. And then you're going to save everything as a JPEG. So now we have everything saved as a JPEG. So now we get to dive into reality capture. So let's dive into reality capture and show you what to do with all these JPEGs. So let's let this load up for a second. Okay, cool. So now we go into inputs, which allows us to bring all our JPEGs. So now we have all our images cleaned up and ready to go. You can go to your alignment tab and just click on align images. And then you're going to let it do its little thing. And then right away, you're going to see a point cloud of our tiger. Pretty cool. It's already kind of adjusting or making something. So now we have this bounding box. We're going to adjust this bounding box to make sure that we have our entire tiger in the shot. And I'm just going to go to reconstruction, and we're going to align it to that box just to make sure that everything's nice and tidy and lined up. Next thing we're going to do is go to reconstruction and go to normal detail. What that does is that button is going to reconstruct that model as a mesh. So it's taking all the point cloud information and generating mesh from that. So now we have a 3D mesh representing our tiger. It's looking pretty cool. There's no textures to it, but it's still looking pretty cool. You could tell it's super high detailed. And let's just kind of scroll through and make sure that there actually is some good detail in there. Oh, and you can also see all those little dots that you're seeing circled around our tiger. Those are representing where each one of the cameras are. A little bit later, I'll show you kind of how to see a better representation of that. But for now, we want to try to clean up that bottom edge because there's some artifacting because we never scanned the bottom. So all we got to do, select the bottom, and you click on filtering, and what that does is it cleans it up, but there's a problem. We now have a hole on the bottom, but there's a quick fix for that. We just go to close holes, and what that does is it's going to find the largest hole on the object, and it's going to try to make a watertight mesh from closing the hole. That's ultimately what we want. We want to try to have a watertight mesh, meaning there's no holes in it, there's no errors, and the geometry is nice and clean. And now that we got that, we want to click on the texture button, and what that's going to do is it's going to take all our cameras and all those points of view, and it's going to project a texture intelligently using our GPUs and extrapolate a texture for our mesh. So there we go. Now we have an awesome looking 3D asset in reality capture, and it's based off of all the hundreds of images that we took, in this case just under 200. And I can show you where we scale up the camera. You can see how every single one of those images is a 3D representation of where it was in physical space. So the method was we took, instead of taking or walking around our object, we had the object sit still, and we had a rotating head rotate our object instead. And this is just a quick little render of our tiger. And I rendered this out just really quick with Octane Render Engine and Cinema 4D. But that's not all. I want to not just do a turntable, I want to actually take this a little bit further. So let's jump into Dimension and see if we can come up with some fun little tricks or visuals. And let's see what we can do with this tiger to bring it to, I don't know, just a different theme maybe, right? So let's launch Dimension. But I feel like before we launch Dimension, if there's any questions, because I'm sure there's probably going to be some questions with regards to the entire workflow, because that was a lot of information to cover. I try to go as quick as possible, just to not take up all the time. But yeah, what'd you guys think?
Well, that was really amazing, Sabour. I love photogrammetry, and seeing you go through the whole photo workflow, I'm confused. It seems like my camera is not showing. I'm just a speaker icon at this point. But yeah, it was really cool to see you go through all of the different camera settings and image processing settings all the way to 3D. That was rad.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a fun process, and what I like about photogrammetry in general, it's a very accessible method in which to capture physical objects in the real world, and kind of what we discussed a little bit prior. You don't have to have expensive equipment to do it. You can literally scan anything you want as long as you get some coverage when you're taking those images with an iPhone or anything. But I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But I mean, the next step is let's just try to figure out what we're going to do with that 3D asset, right? Does anyone have questions before we move on? I'm sure. Let's see if we have any questions. One of the questions that just came in is the color textures applied to the mesh were acquired automatically from the photos. I wonder if is that a question? I'm assuming. So Quinn,
yeah,
you're asking.
Yeah, they're asking, are the textures or colors applied to the mesh, were those from the photos?
That's a great question. Yes, in fact, they are. So when I showed that screen grab of all the thumbnails representing each one of the cameras, what that is a physical representation of where the camera was in its 3D space. And what it's doing is it's taking that image and it's reprojecting it onto the geometry. And it's using the texture detail from each one of those images to reproject those textures intelligently onto a 3D mesh. It still blows my mind how it works. There's geniuses that made this software, but it works and it looks amazing, and you get super high quality meshes, super high quality assets. This scan actually, in its original high quality state, was I think it was like almost 32K in texture size. And then I scaled it down to an 8K, and then I scaled it down to a 4K so we can try to play in Dimension without, crashing everything, right? So, but the model still looks good because in reality capture, it does a really cool thing where it will take the highest quality mesh and the highest quality texture and reproject all of that into the lowest quality mesh, in which case I went from like 15 million triangles down to 150,000, and it took all the detail from the high quality mesh to make a normal map and to make a displacement map. So when you're rendering it out in AR, it looks high fidelity, even though it's a very efficient model. So with that said, do you guys want to, should we dive in? Or actually, I think I'm seeing a couple more questions come in. Is there a recommended camera lens angle or focal depth when taking those images to make it more accurate? That's actually an incredible question, James. So to recap what the question is, it's determining what lens and what focal depth will give you the best results. So the reason why I have a ring flash instead of just doing, let's say, like a ring light, is you need a very powerful light, because ultimately what you don't want is depth of field in photogrammetry. So I actually shot this with my camera closed down to an f/22. And if you know about cameras, all that's doing is it's just closing down that shutter and letting as much focus into your shot. So everything's in focus, but you need a lot of light to counteract that. So that's why you have a powerful flash, but that also is why photogrammetry works so well outdoors, because what's better than the sunlight for our light source? And cloudy days are even better, because then you have a nice diffused light. You don't have any shadows. It's a perfect scenario. That's a great question. So hopefully that answers. I think we have another one.
One of the things I was going to say about photogrammetry is I learned so much about photos and just how to control a camera, like at a really root level. And what you're explaining about gray days being better than really sunny days, and getting rid of that depth of field, just getting that level of control over your camera it's super good practice. So even if you're not necessarily into 3D, but you're a photographer, I encourage you to do a couple of photogrammetry projects, because it's going to teach you how to control your camera.
Yeah,
I had to rearrange. No. I hope it looks okay.
No, it looks great. It looks fantastic. So one of the questions that came in is, how does the power of the Z help the time it takes for doing this across 186 images? That's a great question. So reality capture utilizes GPUs to do a lot of the processing, if not all of the processing, when it comes to the mesh creation, the texture reprojection. So having a high-end GPU like RTX 5000 in the ZBook that I was using was detrimental to getting it done. On top of that, when you have a workstation that is equivalent or more or as powerful as some desktop workstation, but it's in a mobile workstation, it makes it to where I can be on the field, or I can be out in the desert, or I can be in a park or wherever, scanning 3D assets on the fly in an actual environment that's away from a studio, and I can process that and see if I'm getting all the images that I need. And I can do an actual scan on the field to make sure I'm getting the assets that I need, instead of flying back home or driving back home and realizing everything I captured was wrong. So that's been a huge, huge factor for me personally, is having a portable workstation that is as powerful as some of the workstations that I've worked on, desktop workstations that I've worked on. It's pretty awesome.
Another thing I love about the ZBooks is the SD card, because, if you go out and you shoot hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, or even, thousands of photos, just being able to quickly get those onto the device is something I really value.
There's a question that actually came in regards. They're saying it's a beginner question, but I say there's a lot of fun aspects to this question. But it is there any material or texture that you don't recommend to be scanned? So that's a great question. So reflective objects are inherently difficult to scan. The reason why we even used a polarizing filter. It's a technique called cross-polarization. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have this lens. If I start rotating this lens, you'll see where things get completely pitch black as I turn this. So the idea behind that is this is basically eliminating any reflective properties that's bouncing back into your camera as we rotate the filter. So you're basically cross-polarizing this technique. And what that's doing is, when I demonstrated my canteen is a reflective surface. If I were to try to have scanned this reflective surface by itself without eliminating these reflections, what the software is going to do is it's going to wig out. It's not going to understand where a solid point of contact is, because the reflections are constantly in one spot as the textures are moving. So it freaks out. So reflective surfaces are a big no-no with photogrammetry. So a method in which to capture reflective surfaces is there's special sprays that you can spray. I've actually gone as budget as grabbing that hair stuff that you put on your hair for Halloween, like you make your hair red or gray like an old man or something like that. I actually did that once for a reflective, it was actually a glass bowl I needed to scan. So I grabbed that spray and I sprayed the crap out of this bowl just to try to get it gray and textured. And I knew it was just water-based, so I can just wash it off afterwards. But the whole idea is you just need a lot of surface detail and as matte of an object as possible. That's going to get you your best scan. Reflective is a little bit tougher, and that's why we use polarizing lenses.
Yeah,
that was a great
the other go-to is Tinactin, the unmedicated Tinactin they sell at the pharmacy. We used to buy it by the I worked in 3D scanning.
Tinactin?
Yeah, that stuff works great for 3D scanning, and it's like $3 a bottle. So,
That's hilarious. I
be
never
sure you
knew
get
that.
the unmedicated Tinactin though for spraying your 3D scans.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So now, are there any other questions? I feel like
looks like we're good.
What was that?
Yeah, looks like we're good. Let's go to Dimension. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, let's try to make something, right? Okay, so we're going to launch Dimension, and I'm going to kind of dive into what we're going to do with this tiger. We're trying to come up with something that was a little bit more fun than just putting the tiger bust on, I don't know, like a table or a stone or something along the lines of a basic room. We wanted to kind of create something around the tiger, a theme, if you will. So we kind of came up with, maybe let's do like a pharaoh-style Egyptian theme to the tiger. Maybe it's some like Egyptian god or something like that. So first thing we did was we added some marble base to kind of like make this into almost like a monument, right? And then the next thing we wanted to add is we added the Nemesis gold headband, which you're going to see now. And all I'm doing is I'm hiding the layers that we brought in prior. Now you can see we put the Nemesis on there. And all these assets were created in mixture of Maya, 3D Max, or Blender, or even Cinema 4D. What's nice about Dimensions is you can make it in any application, bring it all in. And then we added these pillars. Now these pillars are really cool because my friend Ashley actually created these hieroglyphs by hand and then brought them into Blender and extruded them and populated these pillars with these really cool hieroglyphs. I thought it was a really cool idea. Now adding these pillars into the shot are now going to add a little bit of layer of dimension, right? So it's now kind of coming together as a fun scene. Now what we want to do is we have all these different camera angles, right? But before I go into there, I'm going to click our ray tracing mode, which is going to activate our GPUs, and it's going to show us really nice, beautiful renders. You can see the gold flake is in there. We have all the specular details. This scan is actually looking pretty rad. I'm super happy with it. This whole design is kind of just fun for me. And this is really the first time I got to play in Dimension with a 3D scan that I had in my office, and coming up with this like Egyptian theme was really fun. But you could see the renders that you get out of Dimension is really awesome for just getting in, getting out, adjusting textures on the fly, and then on top of that, let's export this object to AERO by going to File, Export to AERO. And what it's going to do is it's going to process that file, and then we're going to be able to do some really cool stuff in AERO and try to experience this in the real world, right? So I want to actually try to figure out a way to get our 3D model that we scanned. We created a pharaoh-style monument, but now I want to see if I can figure out some like AR experience in an easy way. And AERO is exactly that tool to make it really easy to experience AR and share that with everybody. So let's dive into AERO. But actually, I think before we dive into AERO, I feel like we need to pause for a second because there's probably some questions with regards to Dimension and I don't know, maybe, hey, that's a fun Pharaoh object. I don't know, anything. But yeah, anybody want to discuss about our Pharaoh tiger god?
I had a question about that ray trace. So in Dimension, I'm not as experienced as I could be with Dimension. In Dimension, you just click a button and it does ray tracing?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So when I was navigating, I had ray tracing turned off just so I can navigate the scene a little bit quicker and actually position our objects and whatnot. But when I actually start getting to that look development part of it, where I really want to see how the textures are interacting with one another. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, if I want to make adjustments to the texture, it's rad because you can actually just double click on the material and it will load up Photoshop and you can make your adjustments, press save in Photoshop, and then go right back to Dimensions and it auto refreshes. But what's awesome is that little ray tracing button. I know, it's cool. That ray tracing button in the top right hand corner, it activates real-time ray tracing using NVIDIA RTX, and it resolves a scene that has real-world lighting, real reflections. It looks gorgeous, and it's all being done on the fly. So you can frame up your shot, and you can see how your scene would look like in a final render right in the viewport. It's kind of rad for someone like me who wants to design and wants to art direct a scene and not have to wait, an hour like it used to for one render to realize, wow, this sucks. I gotta do this all over again. But wow, we're getting actually quite a few questions coming in too. I have a question for both the speakers. What is the best piece of advice you have for designers just getting into AR? That's a fun one. I would say just dive in just start playing around with a lot of these fun tools. When we dive into AERO, you're going to see that I think we can try to figure out something. I am by no means an expert in AERO, but this is going to be a discovery for all of us. We're going to try to figure it out together, and hopefully that'll ease your mind at how easy it can be. Because for me, I'm a little terrified, like, hey, how are we going to do this demo in a second? But hey, we're going to figure it out together. We're going to figure out how to dive in, get our first AR experience, and do it quickly, right? But that's my suggestion, is just dive into the tools. There's a lot of free tools out there, and there's a lot of great tutorials. Just be a professional student like I've been my entire life. I'm learning every day, right? I'm sure Josh has some fun stuff to say to that too.
Yeah, that was the same point I was going to make, actually, about just keep learning, keep experimenting. I mean, your skills, they just build on top of each other. And, like the photography demo that he did in the beginning, how I was saying, learning how to use the camera, learning what the actual machine of it does, helps you create these images that help you create a 3D model that now he's inside of, that doesn't have any of the lighting artifacts, and now he's bringing it into Dimension, and he's able to light it. So getting understandings of all of those base levels just by doing it is the key. And always have a project or 10 going on in the background.
10. Or 10. We had another question that came in from Ashley. Ashley asked, can you move around in the scene with ray tracing preview on? That's a good question. I wasn't at the moment when I was browsing through my scene. I didn't have ray tracing on the entire time. The reason why I did that is because I kind of wanted to do that fun reveal of what it looked like when it was all framed up and pretty. But absolutely, you can go through your entire scene and navigate with ray tracing on and work in that method with no issues. In fact, I like to work that way just so I can see my material as I'm going and see my scene as I'm going. The only reason why I did it the other way for what I just showed you is just the reveal of our Pharaoh god and all its glory with all the reflections and all that good stuff. But that was a great question. We have another one.
I was just going to add, Sabour, it's one of the reasons that I really like using Dimension, with RTX, is because you get this almost final frame quality in every moment that you're working, and that's a pretty new experience. I remember waiting for 35 or 40 seconds to get a low res shaded image out of a renderer. Now to be able to do it in real time is really freeing for iteration.
So we have another question. This one's Matthew. Oh, Matthew, you're challenging me here. Can you demonstrate a moving light source around the model? Now, yes, with a caveat. The caveat is I am currently running NVIDIA Broadcast to mute a lot of my fan noise that I have in this office because I have a little fan filter over here, so that's running, but NVIDIA Broadcast is canceling all that out. When I spin up my GPUs, it may make my audio a little choppy, but let's go.
Sabour, I showed that a little bit later on, and I have that all set up to show, so if you want, we can just get back to that one later.
That's it. Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so challenge was accepted, Matthew, just for the record, but Josh bailed me out, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. So, David Peterson, is real-time ray tracing really useful for you as a creator? And can't I do it somehow on my MacBook Pro? Oh, that's a great question.
That's a good question.
So, exhale. I actually used to be a Mac user.
This is the confession.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get raw with everybody. I was Mac everything I had, and then I actually bought NVIDIA GPUs and I shoved them in my Mac Pro. I got that to work, and it was working up until Apple broke everything. And at that point, I was losing business, I was losing work, I was losing sleep, I was hitting walls. I just, at that point, I realized that, okay, this is not a professional piece of equipment I can rely on and feed my family with, because here's the thing, that's my livelihood, right? These machines, these desktop workstations, these mobile workstations, this is my livelihood. These are the tools that make my living to support my family. When I found that my Mac Pro was not working for me anymore, and all the money I had invested in GPUs, in these Quadro cards are now useless because of the Mac Pro, that's when I had to jump ship. And the second I did that, my God, it was an incredible experience. Everything opened up for me. I started on in Cinema 4D. I encourage everybody, if you guys are just kind of getting into 3D, Cinema 4D and Blender, very easy tools to get in. Don't be scared with 3D Studio Max or Maya. You don't have to dive into the huge professional tools. You can go into Cinema 4D. Blender's free. You could learn a lot of cool stuff about it. And our NVIDIA RTX cards accelerate all of those applications, especially with now that all these render engines are leveraging our GPUs to do real-time ray tracing. Dimension, that's a perfect example of how you can get in and you can get out and you can do real-time ray tracing that you would never be able to do on a MacBook Pro or Mac Pro even. And to have a workstation like the HP ZBook that is, again, powerful enough to render these frames out, I mean, thumbs up. I can't even look back anymore. Cool.
Very thorough answer, for sure.
Cool. So I think the next thing is, I guess we could try to dive into AERO. Do we want to go for it? Try to figure out this AR experience. Try to do something in AR.
I want to see something in real life, Sabour. I want an experience I can have in real life.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm just apologize beforehand if this completely fails. It's Josh's fault. I'm just kidding. It's not your fault, Josh. In fact, you bailed me out.
I take full responsibility. So
let's just dive in. Let's go for it. So now that we have our export, let's launch AERO and bring our Tiger God into a project file. So there it is. We have our Pharaoh Tiger. And let's just zoom in and let's figure out a way to add some type of an animation to this, just to see if there is something we can do, right? I'll be honest, this is my first time playing with this, so let's see if we can just kind of learn together. So just added a circle. It's one of the preset objects. And let's kind of move it over with the little arrows right here. Okay, cool. Let's see, how do we scale? All right, there we go. We can scale with the S tool. That's it. That's pretty easy. Let's just zoom out for a second. Okay, so we have these triggers in the bottom. So if I click on trigger, let's do it with a tap. So if I tap on the screen, we want something to happen. So let's go to actions, spin. Let's have it spin. So when I tap on this sphere, I want it to spin. Let's keep it linear. Let's make it infinite so it just spins forever. And let's just preview it. And let's check it out. So I click. Oh, cool. Okay, that was easy. All right, so it's spinning, but I want it to spin the other way. So why don't we change the axis and increase the time it takes to spin. That way it goes a little bit slower. Okay, let's preview it. That looks cool. Okay, I think that's workable. That's a good test. So let's see, how do we share this? I want to try to get this to our phone so we can actually start spreading this around or sending a link to somebody, or maybe I want to have somebody experience something. So let's go to File. Let's go to Share. That seems easy enough. And then let's go to Create a Link. And okay, cool. QR code. Let's scan the QR code with our iPhone. All right, that looks good. And all right, so now it's loading. It's loading on our iPhone. It's gonna take a second preparing the scene. Okay, cool. It's asking me for play. All right, so there we go. All right, it's there. It's there. Let's place it on our table. Cool. This looks about good. Right there. Okay, so tap on the surface, and let's see if this works. I'm going to tap on our sphere. Oh my God, it actually works. That's awesome. Super simple. I mean, it took no programming, no nothing. AERO. Wow, this is kind of fun. So now that we have this animated, the possibilities are kind of endless. This I feel like I'm going to lose a lot of time just playing around in this. But let's see how this looks. There we go. All right, so here's another test just to see how the pharaoh looked next to our physical object. That looks pretty cool. We have our actual tiger on the right, obviously. We have our AR tiger that we modified and made into a pharaoh on the left. This is freaking rad. I feel like this is going to be a ton of fun just playing around. So it's kind of these awesome advancements like this that are leveraging both the HPZ workstations. It's leveraging our GPUs, the RTX 5000s that are in these mobile workstations. On top of that, you can take this entire workflow to your studio and have a bigger workstation like a Z8 workstation with multiple GPUs to do processing even faster. You have pretty much a whole endless slew of tools, whether or not it be a mobile platform or desktop platform. It's still using our NVIDIA RTX hardware to accelerate it. It's using Intel CPUs to accelerate. It's using everything, all the hardware, to make fun things like this. I don't know, it's just a completely different way to experience. And I'm excited to be a part of this whole capture, create, and experience. And there's a whole other aspect of this is the material creation, which you're going to be seeing a lot of cool stuff that Josh is going to be showing you. So with that said, let's go to Josh and see all the cool, fun tools that he's got to bring textures to life. Because, I mean, honestly, that's the part I feel like I'm going to personally learn a lot from is what Josh is going to bring, right? But before we go in, is there any questions about how easy AERO was?
Dude,
that's awesome. I can't believe that. So full disclosure, Sabour and I were talking like last night at 10 p.m. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out AERO, and we were like using it together. So we both, you nailed it, man. That looked really cool from scan to AR in like less than 12 hours. That's amazing.
I'm not gonna lie. I was in a panic when we hung up. I was like, how am I gonna look up tutorials on this? And then I just saw this button that said, add stuff, make things cool. Okay, I'm gonna add stuff and make things cool. That's pretty much all it was. And then the whole sharing thing, are you kidding me? Just give you QR code and I just loaded up my iPhone and just scanned it with the camera app. I didn't even have what? And they just launched. That was crazy. I didn't expect it. I thought it was gonna be like a whole, I gotta tether it and all that stuff. No, it was nothing like that. It was super easy. I loved it.
Yeah, and defining those actions so simply without having to write any code. I mean, I don't know. I've messed around with trying to create AR before, and just being able to do it that intuitively, that's really powerful. That's a new way to experience 3D for everyone.
We have a question that just came in. Can I know how big is your 3D model file, and what is the texture solution? And can you bring already animated models to AERO? Just wondering if AERO can handle complicated objects or scenes. Great question. So, two-part answer. The actual 3D model, it started off being 15 million triangles, and it was about 16K. It was a 16K texture file that was tiled across the model. That was the original initial scan. And then in reality capture, you can essentially drop down the resolution of your mesh and smooth that mesh to make it more AR friendly. So the mesh I ended up finally using was 150,000 triangles, and it was a 4K texture that was all baked as one texture. And that was brought into Dimension. It was brought into AERO with no issues. It was perfect. And to answer your question about the animations, you can import FBX exports out of pretty much any piece of software into AERO, and it's pretty rad. They even have like these sample animations in AERO. They have like this dinosaur that runs around. They have like this little it looks like a squirrel or something that runs around. So there's already animations in there that you can just play around with just to populate a scene, or just even test your phone on your desk with a dinosaur running by. It's kind of cool. But yes, you can add more complex animations to it if you make it in a different piece of software and then bring it into AERO, which I thought was rad. I wanted to just show you guys just the tools inside of AERO from a discovery standpoint and see if we could just try to figure out how to animate something super simple, just to show you that it really is so easy that it blew me away. Blew me away how easy it was. It actually makes me want to just play around with it even more. But yeah, that was a good question. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? When you first had the Pharaoh next to the real tiger, I thought they were both AR. I was like, oh, he's got like a 2-up of them. But no, it looks that real. That's so cool.
That part actually got me excited. When I put them both side by side, I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me right now. Like, this is so cool. This is so cool. But yeah, that was one of those moments for me as well, Quint, that, all right, this is so attainable. And this is something like, before I would have had to do match moving, camera tracking to get like a 3D asset in a recorded piece. It's like a whole visual effect shot to do something that I did on a phone, real time. I don't know. It's crazy. Crazy times. I love it.
Cool. It looks like that's it for questions. I think we can go on it. You said Josh had some stuff we want to go through?
Yeah, I'm excited for Josh's stuff. Josh, I'd love to hear more stuff about just the material process of it, right? So take it away, man.
Awesome. Yeah. So geometry was definitely my first love. But textures have kind of taken over the past few years. It's so powerful what you can do. And just be conscious of time. I'll just jump right into some demos and then come back for some questions. So first off, I just want to do a kind of a 101 on digital materials, just so you guys know what they are and what they're all about. Awesome. I'm going to jump right into a demo explaining digital materials and physically based rendering. We just saw Sabour take us through geometry capture, and that's kind of the canvas, the 3D canvas that we paint on top of with our digital textures. To do that, I'm going to use a really fun and intuitive app called Substance Painter. It's made by our friends over at Adobe 3D and Immersive. And there's a couple of key points that you need to grasp. Then you can just jump right in and start painting in Substance. First thing we see here is I have this 3D scene. And in this case, I have some geometry here that was not captured. It was 3D modeled. It's just a cloth kind of draped over a sphere, and I'm going to use this to drill in like 3 kind of key concepts I want you guys to walk away with the demo. So the first thing I want to do is switch over. Right now we're looking in purely 3D mode, and I want to switch over to 3D and 2D mode. So now on the right hand side I have my 3D object. And on the right-hand side, I have a 2D bitmap, actually. You could think of this like layers inside of Photoshop. So on this side, at the bottom, you can see I have X, Y, and Z. This is 3D space. And on this side, I have U and V. And this is what we call UV space. What does that mean? First off, let me just go ahead and rotate the lighting around so you can see One of the real superpowers of working in 3D is that you can change your shading and shadows and highlights just by moving the light source or changing the intensity of the light source or even the color of the light source. So now as I move the light around this object, you see it actually changes on the 2D view as well. All right, let me make this a little bit more clear by adding a fill layer to the scene. And this is just like a normal layer inside of Photoshop, but in this case, I'm going to drop it into a second concept I want to introduce, which are called channels. So I'm just going to drag it over and drop it in the base color channel. And now you see I have this grid colored pattern, or UV checker, draped over the 3D model. So these pixels down here in the lower right-hand corner, the red ones, correspond to these pixels here in 3D space. And if I move the object around, the pixels in 3D space stay assigned to their location on the 3D object. All right, and same thing if I go ahead and I rotate the light source, it rotates across the object. Now, right now you're seeing all this shininess and gloss, and that's because we're actually in material mode. So back to that concept of channels, I'm now going to look at a single channel of just that base color. All of that lighting is gone. We're just seeing the bitmap on top of the 3D object. And there's nothing really special about this bitmap. If I go over to Photoshop, it's just a normal bitmap, a single layer, and now it's applied on top of the 3D object. Great. So let's get into digital textures. I have a material that I scanned using Project Cactus, which is a digital scanning device that we've been partnered with that HP has been partnered with ADOBE. And this material is consists of 5 channels. I'm going to look at 4 channels to begin with: base color, height, normal, and roughness. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the base color with the textile image, and you see now you see the textile draped over the 3D object. I'm going to change it to material mode so you can get a sense of what it looks like. And there's a couple important things about this this bitmap. In Photoshop, you can see, if I zoom in, there's no shadow or highlights at all on this picture. It's all been removed, and that's very important because we don't want the shadow to show up where we don't want it when we're lighting it in 3D. The other thing that's important is that it's tileable. It's a similar concept to patterning in Photoshop where this edge here will match perfectly with this edge here, and this edge here will match perfectly with this edge here. So back in Substance, if I go to my properties and I change the scale to, I don't know, 3 or 6, now the material, the bitmap is just patterning or tiling across the object. And this is really important so that we don't see any seams. If I move the light source now, it doesn't look like fabric. It looks like plastic that has a fabric pattern on top of it. And this is where the other channels come in. So the next channel that I want to look at is called our roughness channel. And roughness actually defines how shiny or glossy or matte an area is. And it does that by using grayscale. And depending on how gray or how white a pixel is, it determines how glossy or matte that is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab that roughness and drag it into the roughness channel. And you'll see that the nature of the glossiness is going to change quite a bit. Here, I'll hit undo, and I'll do it again. So that's our roughness channel. If I move the light across, we still have some gloss, and that's important because the threads of the fabric actually have gloss. But right now, I'm not really getting a sense of these threads at all. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in the next channel, which is our normal map. Now, normal map is kind of magical. Normal map actually at a pixel level decides how light will bounce off the object. So let me go ahead and just drag it and drop it on. And now you begin to see these subtle details showing up. Let me undo and do that one more time. and if I move the lighting across the object, you begin to see you get all of that really subtle nuance that makes the object look 3D. Now, I haven't added any more geometry. This is all just done with this normal map. And the last channel that I want to work with is called the height channel. And height is similar to normal in that it gives more of those subtle details, but in this case, it does it not by the way light is reflected off of a given pixel. It actually uses the grayscale image to raise or lower a given pixel. See that? I'll undo it, and I'll do it again. Awesome. I'll switch back into 3D mode only, and we can take a look, and I'll rotate the lighting across the object. All right, so a few important concepts we went over. First important concept is UV space. It's a 2D canvas wrapped across the X, Y, and Z 3D object. Next important concept was channels. So we have these different channels, these different stacks of bitmaps that control different aspects of the way the object will be rendered in a physically based way. Third concept was tileability and how the object can pattern across, how the bitmap can pattern across the object. So this is just a quick primer. For the artist, what you really need to know is that you have these different controls on how light and shadow will bounce off of an object. We'll get a little bit later into capture and what that looks like, and also how you can use pre-made materials that are kind of parametric, where you can change different aspects and not have to work from a scan at all. So let's get back to let's get back into the next part of the workshop, and hopefully this made a lot of sense to you all. Cool. Yeah, so that was just kind of an intro to PBR materials, digital materials. One thing I like to say is that PBR is the new RGB. It's like for designers, it gives you these superpowers over the way light and shadow can kind of affect the way an object looks. Let's see if we have any questions at this point. Looks like, the time is coming, so I'm going to keep pushing. Unless Sabour or Quint, do you have any questions? I'm going to jump right into the Project Cactus.
Oh, man,
yeah,
no, this is awesome. This is so awesome, and I'm excited to see Cactus.
I was going to say, how do you get more like height resolution without adding more geometry? That sounds like it just doesn't make sense to me, where you said it's not geometry, and I saw it, but it looked like geometry, but then you said it wasn't?
No, it's a great question. It actually goes to the GPU. So all of that is happening in the GPU. So I don't need the mesh to have all of that detail. I use that channel of the height, and you have from from white to black, and then depending on the shade of that pixel, when the ray tracing happens, it kind of decides how far off of the surface. So there is kind of a pseudo geometry there that's happening magically in the background, but it's not inside the model, which makes it very efficient for things like AR experiences.
I see. Yeah. That's really cool. Thank you. That was the one thing that I was like kind of confused about.
And I'll go at the end. I want to show you guys how to take a displacement map and turn it into geometry for 3D printing, but we'll get to that later.
Cool. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any other questions, so we should be good to move forward.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to get into digital material capture. I'm going to show two different ways to do it. One is with a device that we're prototyping and built in partnership with Adobe 3D and Immersive, and I'll just jump right into that. All right, and now for the next section, we're going to talk about digital material capture. And with that, I want to talk about Project Cactus, which is a collaboration between Z by HP and Adobe 3D and Immersive, where we partnered to create a digital digital material scanning device. So what you see here is actually the prototypes that we built of this device back in 2019. And we're going to go through a little bit on the technology, show some samples of the digital materials that we made. So actually, the material that I just went over is the first material we scanned with the device. So on the left-hand side, you see the digital material output maps that we used in the explainer, and on the right, you see the physically based rendering. But how did we do that capture? So the technique we used moves a light source around an object and has a single camera facing down. So as you see, the camera sees the shadows actually moving around the object. And there's a whole class of algorithms called shape versus shadow, but the approach is called stereophotometry. So on the left-hand side, you see our stereophotometry. The other thing that we did is we used polarization. So by using polarized, cross-polarized, and copolarized light, we're able to remove hotspots and glare and create masks to be able to show what parts of the material would be really shiny or glossy and what parts would be matte. So again, stereophotometry and polarization. Next up, this is the actual data set that we capture. So the light is shining around, the polarization wheel is spinning, and we're collecting this data set. And these data sets can be huge, really, really huge, like gigabytes of raw images. And it is from those raw images that we extract the maps. So the maps that you see on the left-hand side were all extracted using that data set that I just showed. So this is stereophotometry plus polarization. This is a pretty technical way to capture materials. Don't worry, we'll show you a simple way that can be done with your cell phone, but just wanted to give a background onto how digital material extraction works. And actually, the story of the project is pretty cool. So the guys over at Adobe had a concept to make the device, and at HP, we make these industrial 3D printers using multi-jet fusion. So I decided that I could actually 3D model the whole structure and 3D print it so it would fit together like a Lego set. So back in the summer of 19, we actually printed this thing up and started snapping it together. The initial concept, we were going to wrap it in a textile itself to keep the light out. But it turned out that nobody on the team of prototypers knew how to cut or sew. So what we decided to do was use a little bit of PBR magic, and we took the displacement maps, as you see, the stitching and the weave, and we actually displaced that geometry into the 3D printed parts. I'll go more into that a little bit later in the workshop, but just wanted to show that we could actually use scanned materials to generate geometry for the device to scan materials. This is what it looks like when you flip it over. We have all these different light sources, and the camera at the bottom, well, it'll be the top when you flip it over, and nothing on the bottom. So you can place it on top of objects, or you can place objects inside of it. And the last thing I want to point out about Project Captus is that creation, creativity, innovation, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It truly is a team sport. And I find as I've progressed in my career, the more that I can collaborate, the more that I can partner, the faster I can make the dreams that I have come to life. And they actually get so much richer from the input of others. So on this team, you see from right to left, a mix of Adobe and HP designers, engineers came together to make Project Captus possible. So with that, I want to go into digital material capture using your cell phone. So you can all download the app and try it yourselves. But if you want to learn more about Project Captus, stay tuned and yeah, just keep following what we're up to.
Gosh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm curious. Hey, chat, if you're still alive, what's like the first material you'd want to scan with something like that? I'm curious, like what creative answers we can get for like a good material to scan with Project Captus. I think for mine, I'd want to scan like, I don't know, like ground texture. I feel like that'd be really cool to scan like rocks and stuff. I don't know if it can handle stuff like that, but that'd be really cool.
Yeah, does it have a method in which you could just place like a rock like that and it just extracts just the rock portion of it? Because that would be cool. You're right, getting that rock texture or something.
Yeah, it definitely can. It's kind of like a 2.5D scanner. So if you were to put it on top of a rock, you'd get a displacement map and all of the maps on top of it. So it really depends on how high it is. Captus is designed to scan textures, so kind of low height, maybe up to an inch or so. But yeah, you can definitely scan cracks in the sidewalk. You can scan leaves. It's been a lot of fun to work on the project and, understand how what are the limitations of things that can scan, and just the ability, like you did, Sabour, by going and, scanning the geometry and then bringing it into the scene, like just being able to walk into your backyard or kit bash and just grab all these different elements that kind of become your palette for creation.
Let's look in chat here. I see a paper towel. That'd be an interesting one, like the quilted paper towels. Used tissue, maybe. I mean, that would work. Velvet, moss. Yeah, lots of fun little textures we can grab. And that's what's so cool about it.
What's a really cool one is to scan like paper or cloth, actually, and then you can put your graphics on top of it and render how your prints will look on the substrate that you're going to print on top of. I really like doing that. Like photo really cool. Paper, you can put a photo on top of it. Yeah, it's amazing. But just because I want to be cognizant of time, so I'm going to jump in. I got a demo on how to do that with your phone using the Adobe Capture app. So I'm going to keep cruising.
Yeah, go for it, man.
All right, cool. Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different. This is going to be off of my phone. So I actually found out a way to stream the phone. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to open up the Adobe Capture app. And now if you have Adobe Creative Cloud, you can link all of these materials directly to your library. So I'm going to use my phone, and I'm just going to capture a scan of my wall over here. So just a picture of my wall. I got this kind of cinder block thing going on. I want to make sure I have the right kind of details lined up. Okay, now it loads me into the UI, and I want to adjust the picture. So what I'm looking for here is like kind of areas of interest. So you'll see I'll like move up and down and try to get those seam lines just right. Now, ultimately, I'm not going to look at it on a sphere. I'm going to look at it on something more like a flat plate. So I'm going to start playing around with some of these levers. And these roughly equate to the channels that we went over before. So you'll see I'm doing the tiling and the blending, and now it's not working quite the way I want. So I'm going to go in and adjust my crop. And when I start to play with the blend edges, you'll see the magic really starts to happen. And I'll do the repeating, I don't know, like 3, blend the edges. There we go. Now we're starting to look like something that really looks like bricks. On intensity, this is going to roughly, I think it equates to the normal map. It's one of those things you got to experiment with and play with. Detail. Maybe that's normal as well. Just moving it up and down, seeing what it does. Just kind of playing and, like with filters, just kind of playing and seeing if I get the effect that I want. Kind of exploring. Roughness is the same as the channels in Substance Painter. And let's see, moving the repeating, blending edges again. Yeah, that blending edge algorithm is actually pretty cool, the way it blends that and makes it look good. Really like that. And again, I can fix some of this later at the create step, but for now, let's just look at it on kind of more of a cylinder. It looks all right. I think at least for the purposes of this demo, it's good enough to go with. The real magic of this app is when I save it, it just automatically populates in my materials in my Adobe Creative Cloud libraries, which is super cool. Now, I don't want to just do one material, so let's see. There's got to be something else to scan around here. Perhaps, look at this piece of, this wood filing cabinet. I like all that detail on the top. That looks cool. You know what? Maybe I like the grain on the side more. Let's go ahead and take a picture. The white balance is kind of giving me some problems. I'm losing that nice orangey color. Let's try to keep that, get a little more light in here. Snap. And again, I'm going to adjust all right, I'm going to take this one more time. Here we go. Line it up and snap. Awesome. Yeah, and again, I'm going to be looking at this more on a planar surface, so I'll go like that. I want to adjust it and really get that, that kind of growth line there to be the prominent feature. It does its magic. And again, I'm just going to start exploring with these different sliders. I'm going to see how the roughness looks from the, oh, there you go. You see that kind of reflection. It's not as strong. Yeah, turn it down like that. All the way up, see what that does. I think I'm going to keep it high. Turn the detail all the way up. Now, let's look at repeat. Wow, you really see that I'm getting a strong kind of seam lines. But again, that blend edge algorithm should take care of some of that. See how, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Now this is starting to look interesting, something that I can use. More fine tuning, seeing if it is the way I want it. Again, this is just experiment. Download it from the App Store. It's an awesome app. It's got a lot of other features with colors and patterns, and it all syncs with the library, so I really like that aspect of it. I have a lot of fun with it on walks and just kind of, gathering materials as I go. Again, I'm going to save it to my Creative Cloud, and in seconds, I've just created these materials. So we've gone from Project Captus, where we're using this advanced stereophotometry with polarization and this prototype of a digital material capture device, to a cell phone. The results are obviously not going to be the same, but in the next step, when I bring it in and start using these materials for creation, I think you'll see that they do give some pretty cool effects, and there's a lot more you can do as a jumping off place and bring them into Photoshop and really have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, I think that's it for the capture section, and I'm going to go and move on to create. Awesome, yeah. So that's the Adobe Capture app. It's pretty straightforward. I do want to just keep pushing so you can see how those materials are used before we run out of time here. So I'm just going to jump in like on a demo marathon here. I'm going to jump right into the next demo. All right. Now I'm inside of Adobe Dimension, which is a really cool rendering tool that is aimed at creative professionals and graphic designers just like you. It's included in Adobe Creative Cloud, so you can just hop right in. And yeah, it's just really approachable and intuitive, but it's also quite powerful. So the first thing, there's the set of starter assets, the different materials you can use. But in this case, I actually want to use my library materials. And if I open up my library, my materials, I have those two scans that I made previously. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop that brick directly onto the pedestal. It's just a really simple pedestal that I made with two cubes that I just kind of scaled into this position. I drop them on, and you see it show up. And one thing I do want to point out, I can rotate it just as I did in Substance Painter, and I can also go ahead and adjust the direction of the lighting. Under the environment, I can move the rotation. And one thing that's really cool, I'm using a Z8 workstation, a very powerful workstation. You could do this on any of our Z machines because they all have the NVIDIA RTX technology. So when I start zooming in, you'll see I kind of get a preview. But up here, I'm able to set the render settings, and it starts to do real-time rendering as soon as I stop moving the camera. There we go. Now it's on. So yeah, this is RTX on. So you can start to see that the shadows, the drop shadows, everything kind of fills in really quickly. I get this preview mode, and then as soon as I stop, boom, you get that shadow. You get the lighting coming in, and that's really the power of 3D right there. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the way this looks. I mean, there's things that I could do to make me happier. For instance, on the material for the brick, I can actually just open up that base color channel. Again, I have the base color, I have the roughness, I have the normals, same as in Substance. But with one click, I can now just open it up in Photoshop and do things like, I don't know, I'll just bump the contrast way up. Play with that brightness a little. All right. Now I'm getting a little bit of yellow in there, so what I'm going to do is adjust the color balance as well. And yeah, I'll just pull it out of that yellow zone. Maybe push it down a little there. Okay. And the beauty is I save it, and it instantly updates inside of the app. So I very quickly was able to capture those materials and then apply them to this 3D geometry and render it in real time, get a very close preview of what the final frames would look like. One more thing I want to show is I have an asset that was prepped out by some from a really high-end 3D scan, and we applied the texture. We applied the texture that we captured with Cactus. So I think you'll see that, that shoe, get that preview, it's that kind of quick preview, and then I let it sit for a second, and you start getting that real-time rendering happen. All right, cool. I think we're back. That was just a little bit. I did show off the moving the light source while, so that for that first question, and then just bringing those digital materials and applying them to the scene.
Yeah, that was pretty cool seeing it actually interact. I'm glad you showed it, so I wouldn't have it. So thanks for that bailout. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was Matthew.
No worries.
Matthew wanted to see that there.
So I think we're coming up on the time. I want to kind of maybe ask the audience. We had one more demo planned. We had some questions. What do you guys do? You guys want to look at the last experience demo? It's about 4 or 5 more minutes, or should we just start taking some Q&A?
What's in that last demo, Josh? Just so that we kind of know what it goes over.
It's the 3D printing demo. So so Sabour showed off the AR experience, and I wanted to show off the 3D printing. Audience,
looks like we don't.
You guys.
Yeah, we don't have any questions, so we can go straight to it.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, this is the last demo that I had planned. So let's just jump right into it. Awesome. So I'm really excited about this one. My real passion, what I really care about is the transition from digital to physical and from physical to digital back again. I love cameras. I love scanners. I love 3D printers and CNC machines and our large format graphics printers. I'm just really interested in the way physical things can form a digital process and the way digital things can be made physical. So for my experience portion, Sabour focused on the digital aspect. I'm going to focus on more the physical. And to do that, I'm going to show how you can use some digital materials or physically based rendering workflows to create textures for 3D printed parts like we did on Project Cactus. So yeah, I'll just jump right in. So here I am inside of Substance Painter again. This is a tool I use a lot for this type of thing. In this case, I took this top of a mouse that HP makes. I'll tab over and show you the CAD on it. So this is the CAD inside of Rhino here. You can see it's got all these mechanical pieces and bosses that allow it to attach to the mouse. I didn't need any of that. What I did is I just took the top piece and I unwrapped it. I'll show the UV checker so you can see what it's all about. And I unwrapped it so that we get this, you know, pretty nice and clean UVs on top of the top surface. So I'll click back over to just this view. In this case, I don't have any of the, it's just that single top surface. All right, so here's what we do. I'll take the same fabric scan I took from before, and I'm just going to hide the color layer. In this case, I'm going to look at the height. So this is that displacement map, and I'm going to drop it in. And you see automatically you get the surface displacement. But what I actually want to do is go up into the settings, and down at the bottom here you have displacement and tessellation. So I'm going to begin to actually adjust this geometry, because if you look, you can see it's actually still flat. But now when I zoom in and I set the scale, I can actually begin bumping out that geometry like that. The fibers actually show up. All right, maybe that's a little bit extreme right now, and I'm going to add the color channel to it as well. Scroll back up, replace out that UV color with the texture. There we go. And again, I can play with scale. I can do all of this kind of adjustment. But now, when I save it out, I actually have the geometry that can be 3D print. Let me show you. Awesome. These are my hands. Great. So here's the 3D printed part. Zoom in a little bit. And I added back on the mechanical pieces. It's flexible. It's quite durable. So this is, again, from our Color Multijet Fusion machine. And yeah, it's actually the mouse that I've been using this whole time. A couple of other really cool examples. So this is a part of Project Cactus itself. If I zoom in, you can start to see the stitching detail and the weave detail, and even kind of the sandblasted detail at the top. And again, this is a actual 3D printed part, and it's an actual part of the Project Cactus prototypes that we use to scan this material. And lastly, we made some sunglasses for Adobe Max the same year we launched Project Cactus. And in this case, we printed kind of a leatherette texture on the edge of the sunglasses. And yeah, these are made out of nylon, very durable, very sturdy. And these are all created using the displacement map or the height map from the physically based rendering workflow, but displacing the geometry to create something that can actually be 3D printed. So when you're learning about these new techniques, 2D, you'll learn about bitmap and vector. You'll get into 3D and you'll start learning about meshes and geometry. Maybe you'll even get interested in CAD and kind of precise geometry and BREP surfaces. And of course, then you get into digital textures and digital materials. And all of these are just really tools to express your creativity, express your ideas, and yeah, encourage you all to keep learning and keep adapting these workflows, and just keep being creative. Thanks so much.
Awesome, dude. Bringing textures into the real world. That's such a cool idea, using 3D printing so you can actually like feel it. I love that.
I actually have a pair of those glasses from that Adobe Max. I wear them every once in a while.
Yeah, the craziest thing, I think we made like 1,600 pairs in like 2 weeks. And it was just one of these examples of things that can only be done because of like capture, create, experience workflows.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for your time and your knowledge. I think we all learned a lot about 3D and all the different technologies that go into that. And I think, at least for me, I learned a lot about things I can do right now with no 3D experience using, those scanning apps, Capture, Adobe Capture, there's Adobe Dimensions. There's so much great stuff there for us. What I'm hoping is that you guys also learned some things too. So some of you at the 2D event might know what we're about to talk about, and that is the design challenge. So we mentioned it earlier, so you'd have a chance to prepare, and we're going to give you the full details now. SCAD has put together a design challenge so that you can show us what you have learned. We want to see how your tools enable your creativity by making a scene in Dimension and bringing it into the real world with AERO.
You'll be judged on 3 criteria by SCAD students who worked on this event. The first is, does your submission answer the prompt? Second, does your submission utilize Adobe AERO's behaviors feature? And the third is, does your project wow us?
In terms of technical details, we'd also love to have some other information with the title, like a short description, your social media, and your portfolio link, so that we can credit you globally if you end up winning. We'd like a .real file. That's just what you export from Adobe AERO, but any kind of 3D file should do. Worst case, just zip it and zip the file in a folder and send it to us in the submission link. We are going to be cutting off submissions at midnight Mountain Time tonight, so get your submissions in by then.
Quint, wait a minute, that's
what?
A little too soon. These people still have a lot of final work to finish.
You know what? I think you might be right. So let's say you have until Sunday at midnight Mountain Time to submit all of them. We'll send the link in the Discord chat. Get ready. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this slide over here. That's the one that has all the information for the design challenge. Like I said, if you win, you will be featured on our brand partners' social medias with all of your portfolio links. So it's a great networking opportunity for everybody. Oh, go ahead, Aparna.
Oh, and that's our show. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for the creative experience. And whether you were here for both events or just joining us today, we truly appreciate your time.
This has been a huge endeavor, over 20 weeks in the making for this SCADpro sponsored course. For those of you unfamiliar, SCADpro is a program at SCAD that connects students with companies both big and small to find great solutions that work in the real world.
The Discord server is going to have all the information about the design challenge, including the Q&A, the submission details, and the winner's announcement. We're totally fine with you lurking or even just asking us questions, That's really what we're here for.
To all of our SCAD students, we're wishing you a fantastic spring break and a wonderful winter quarter grades. And to the rest of you who are here not from SCAD, we're also wishing you a fantastic spring break and wonderful winter quarter grades. See you guys later. Thank you so much. That's a wrap.